The Nintendo Switch has quietly become a safe haven for JRPG lovers because the classical JRPGs are just that much better laying on the couch with your Switch in hand. But with the Switch 2 on the horizon, interest in these titles are bound to explode again. I'm expecting the majority of these JRPGs to be getting upgrade packs to enhance the quality for the Switch 2. Tons of hidden gems are just sitting there on the older Nintendo consoles like the 3DS or the Wii U, just waiting to be rediscovered in a whole new light. Now, whether you're a long-term fan or just dipping your toes in the genre, these are going to be my top 10 JRPGs on the Switch that you absolutely need to experience, especially before the next wave hits. The Xenoblade Chronicles series as a whole is a poster child for JRPGs on the Switch because it is a console exclusive. Xenoblade Chronicle games always felt like they were pushing the hardware of the Switch to its limits, and on another console, it may be a better experience, but with the Switch 2 and the inevitable upgrade packs, these games are going to be a powerhouse, and I already know that Monolith Thoth is already cooking up something incredible right now, taking advantage of the new hardware. We've seen the success of Xenoblade Chronicles X being ported from the Wii U to the Switch. Now, I personally don't expect the upgrade packs to have this big of an impact, but I do expect them to generate a ton of hype from newcomers or those looking for just any type of reason to revisit each game. With the announcement of the Switch 2, conversation began not just for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to get an upgrade pack, but a definitive edition instead. I'm down for either or. Regardless of what we get, I'm going to be playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as soon as I get my Switch 2 in hand, and hopefully there's some info on the upgrade packs by then. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, let me give you a quick overview. The Xenoblade franchise is known for its beautiful large-scale open-world designs, emotionally written stories, and its sci-fi setting. It also takes heavy inspiration from MMORPGs for its combat system, providing a unique experience for those who love JRPGs, but are looking for a fresh take on turn-based and or action-based combat. Each story is written in a way that's understandable for newcomers who don't play the games in order, but they are all connected, and a lot of the aha moments aren't going to make as much sense or hit as hard if you don't play them in order. I know. Doing an entire franchise is a cop-out for a top 10 list, but there will be several in this video. I wanted to include the heavy hitters, but also prevent this list from feeling too generic and include some of the less talked about gems. When recommending JRPGs on the Switch, the Xenoblade and Fire Emblem franchises are like 1A and 1B. The fact that each of these are experiences that you can only get with the Switch make them that much more appealing when looking for games to pick up on the Switch, especially when you first get it in hand. Chances are you've played a lot of the other games on this list that aren't console exclusives if you're a JRPG fan. Now, when it comes to the Fire Emblem series, it's a tactical JRPG franchise that's evolved over time alongside Nintendo consoles. If you're looking for a solid entry point, Fire Emblem Three Houses is going to be your best bet and you can't go wrong with it. This is the entry where they began to include a lot of social simulation side of things, where you can grow closer with the characters that are also going to bring benefits to the battlefield. Tactical JRPGs don't get as much mainstream love as the other JRPGs, but I personally enjoy them way more than I expected to. I love the thought of being able to just command and build an army like I'm Lelouch from Code Geass, and I don't have the mental capacity to build and command that army to fulfill that itch with chess, and I feel like tactical JRPGs are just difficult enough to make me feel mentally stimulated and live my fantasy of being Lelouch on the battlefield, commanding my units to do as I please. But back to Fire Emblem. Each Fire Emblem game is going to be a standalone entry that generally takes place in a medieval period where the protagonist is either royalty or mercenary caught in a conflict between two or more countries. Generally, each character has its own unique class that comes with a special set of stats, abilities, and movement ranges to traverse the map. How you stage your units prior to battle have a huge impact on the outcome, which keep things thought-provoking from the start. Fire Emblem was known for its permadeath mechanic, where if your unit died in battle, they would be permanently removed from the story, adding even more stakes to every single battle and decision that you make. With the newer installments though, like I recommended Fire Emblem Three Houses earlier, they've incorporated a way to turn this off, but it is still a signature of the series and some people may appreciate that added difficulty. Now, if you haven't played many Fire Emblem games, you probably recognize a lot of the characters from being featured in Smash Bros. As early as Smash Bros. Melee, and that's how I learned about Fire Emblem after playing Ike, and that led me to explore my first tactical JRPG. Now, if you haven't already, I really would appreciate it if you took the time to help me get this video to 100 likes and consider subscribing to the channel for more JRPG content like this. Now, if you're looking for a list that only includes Switch exclusive games, Lexine from Backlog Battle posted a video diving into all of the Switch exclusive JRPGs, so feel free to check that out as well if you haven't already. The Super Mario RPG Remake, I believe, is the last Switch exclusive we're going to be discussing on this list, and all of the points apply from Fire Emblem Xenoblade Chronicles regarding the perks of being a Switch exclusives, so I won't reiterate those here. Super Mario RPG is a remake of the first ever Mario RPG released in 1996. Hey, the year I was born. I know I look old, but I was born in 1990. All right, you don't care. My bad. The goal was to modernize the visuals, music, and user experience without fundamentally altering the core game mechanics or the story. Combat is turn-based with timing-based inputs to deal increased damage or block attacks. Now, I know you're all probably wrapping up your Expedition 33 playthrough, so now that you're all warmed up with the time-based inputs, now's the perfect time to play the OG of that system. They keep things switching up because when you get a new weapon, the attack animation and timing of the attacks will change with it. But aside from that, combat is pretty standard from what you'd expect of a turn-based game. The story is also going to be more positive and lighthearted, which is going to balance out all that doom and gloom you got from Expedition 33. The different maps offer a ton of variety, so although combat can be straightforward, you're never going to be hung up on it because you're always going to be getting things shaken up, experiencing a new environment. The original game was a classic that kicked off the era of Mario RPGs, and the Super Mario RPG Remake offers a perfect opportunity for you to experience that greatness in case you missed it the first time around. Unicorn Overlord released last year and cleared everyone's expectations, hooking anyone who actually installed it and gave the game a chance. We spoke about tactical JRPGs earlier with Fire Emblem, and games like Unicorn Overlord are slowly starting to get the mainstream audience more interested in them, which I'm excited about. One of the first things that stood out to me with Unicorn Overlord was the art direction. It's very distinct, helping the game kind of carve out its own identity amongst other tactical JRPGs in the genre. In the game, you'll play as a prince who's forced into exile, who rises to lead the Liberation Army in a quest to reclaim his kingdom. Did I just describe Suikoden? All right, but while the story though is pretty straightforward, the real strength lies in the strategic gameplay. You begin with a more smaller, modest force, but as you liberate regions and expand your influence, you gain valor, allowing you to recruit new units and make your army even bigger. As someone who slowly started to fall in love with tactical JRPGs, I was impressed by how Unicorn Overlord adds a fresh spin to the genre. The core gameplay combines real-time movements across the battlefield with auto-resolved turn-based combat, but still allows for you to have meaningful inputs. Now, even though the combat is auto-resolved, you're going to control your unit's behavior by assigning them skill priorities, even though you're not directly issuing the commands in combat yourself. Each unit is made up of 5 characters arranged in a 2x3 grid, and the leader you choose for each squad significantly affects how they perform. Now, whether it's movement speed or special support abilities, the leader's class plays a crucial role. That's going to vary from anything to being a cleric who's going to heal allies to a gladiator that's going to be able to have a bonus smashing through barricades. The class system really invites you to experiment and fine-tune your squad to optimize them. Well, fine-tune and optimize mean the same thing, but you get what I'm trying to say. Now, this is something that I always appreciated with gacha games because I like the team building dynamic and like being able to effectively utilize my resource to get through difficult portions of content. But it's nice to have a game, and this is why I like tactical JRPGs so much, where I can do that and not have to depend on RNG and the gacha side of things, which really limitates my creativity. It's incredibly easy to just get absorbed in the team building, only to be thrown a curveball the moment the battle begins. And then you kind of get into the aspect of, okay, did I optimize my team well enough for every last minute scenario to break through what the game is going to throw at me in the story? It's just really fun. So if you're looking for a tactical JRPG layered with strategy and a visually distinct style, Unicorn Overlord is absolutely worth checking out. With the Switch allowing this experience to be on the go, your time with Unicorn Overlord is going to be incredibly well spent. Octopath Travelers, the ideal choice for those craving the charm of a classic pixel art 2D game, but now with enhanced modern polish and a unique twist on some of the old school turn-based mechanics. Its gorgeous presentation fuses like pixel art, resulting in a world that feels both like nostalgic and new and modern and like very fresh at the same time. At its core, the game features 8 individual storylines, each centered around a different protagonist with their own background and ambitions. The combat system builds on traditional turn-based roots, but introduces a different layer, like a tactile layer that revolves around identifying enemies' weaknesses and breaking their defenses. Each hero starts with a specific job class and can eventually take on a secondary role, which makes the strategic possibilities of team building that much more fun. Mixing and matching job combinations keeps the experience engaging and demands a lot of planning and thoughtfulness as you face more and more difficult enemies. Currently, Octopath Travelers 1 and 2 are available, but each contain isolated stories, so in the rare chance that Octopath Travelers 2 is on sale but 1 isn't, don't hesitate to pick it up. Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster is one of the Switch 2 launch titles representing the JRPG side of things. As the title suggests, this is a remaster to a game that was originally launched on the 3DS. I really hope that they continue with this trend. I didn't actually play a lot of the games on the 3DS, so I feel like this gives me another chance to give them a try without having to go back and buy a 3DS. But with the Switch 2 being a single screen console, several things from the 3DS launch title are going to have to be condensed from the original version, but now you can expect them to take advantage of the Switch 2 hardware. In addition to the main game, there are also 2 new mini games utilized in the Switch 2 Joy-Con feature. One is going to be testing your rhythm, probably similar to how Just Dance is, and the other is going to be piloting an airship with the new Joy-Con mouse inputs. At the heart of its gameplay is the Brave and the Default system, which allow you to take multiple actions in a single turn or defend to build up actions for later. Pair that with the flexible job system featuring dozens of character classes, and you have Bravely Default's battle system that encourages creativity and experimentation. Don't let the title fool you. Star Ocean: The Second Story R isn't a sequel in the traditional sense. While it takes place within the broader Star Ocean universe, its story stands completely on its own, making it accessible for newcomers. Originally released in 1998, The Second Story was a genre-defining JRPG of its time. Now, over 2 decades later, Square Enix has reimagined it with this stunning remake. Square Enix, in my opinion, continues to pump out these impressive HD 2D remakes, and Star Ocean: The Second Story R falls within that same category and follows in that light. The story begins with Claude, a young officer from an advanced civilization who's accidentally transported to an underdeveloped planet of Expel after interacting with the mysterious artifact. There he meets Rena, a native to Expel with a mysterious power and a hidden past. As Claude is searching for a way home and Rena seeks the truth behind her abilities, they begin to intertwine against ancient secrets and a looming conflict. Players choose to experience the story from either Claude or Rena's perspective, and as the journey unfolds, you'll be able to recruit up to 6 characters to form a party of 8. One of the game's standout features is its private action system, which are optional character interactions that are going to influence relationships within your party. Now, those choices are also going to carry over into the combat dynamics and unlock special scenes or even shape the game's ending. And when it comes to ending, The Second Story R has a ton of variety. There are 80 different possible endings, so your decisions, whether they be big or small throughout your adventure, are going to personalize your outcome in that ending, making each person's playthrough feel unique. Now, whether you're returning for nostalgia or diving into this for the first time, the Star Ocean Second Story R is a masterclass in blending a classical JRPG and bringing it back to life with stunning modern visuals and quality of life enhancements. The Grandia HD Remaster Collection brings together 2 of the most beloved JRPGs, Grandia and Grandia 2, in a remastered package that enhances their visuals for modern hardware while preserving that classic charm that came with the original launches. These 2 games, along with many others on this list that are being remade, help shape the golden era of JRPGs, and even though they're a little dated, are still worth visiting if you haven't already. Grandia's combat revolves around the ATP system with an interrupt mechanic. That means that characters' actions are going to be time-based, and then they're able to interrupt enemy actions with well-timed attacks. Some attacks are going to be area-based, and movement during battle plays a tactical role, so positioning is going to be even more important. Now, where things differ is that instead of the traditional leveling, Individual weapons and spells gain experience with use, unlocking new abilities as they improve. Unfortunately though, if you've played the original, there isn't much, or I guess there isn't any bonus content at all to pull you back in, unless you just want to revisit it for nostalgic purposes. Now, although this package lacks modern quality of life features and some visual enhancements can be inconsistent, you really can't beat getting these two classics packaged together for the price of one. Triangle Strategy is another modern day tactical JRPG, but instead it embraces the origins of the genre with its HD 2D art style. Set in a war-torn continent, you'll take on the role of a noble knight of the Kingdom of Glenbrook. As the realm begins to fracture under the weights of war and betrayal, you're going to be forced to navigate the different political tensions and morally challenging choices that shape not just your journey, but the overall fate of the entire continent. I know that sounds a little bit dramatic, but trust me, it'll make sense once we get a little bit further, because what sets Triangle Strategy apart is its strong emphasis on player choices and consequences. At key moments in the story, you'll consult with your allies and cast votes using the scale of conviction, and this is a system where your party debates the path forward. Now, your influence over their decisions depend on your prior actions, which is where the player choice and consequences come into effect, and interacting them is going to also help you understand where each character's beliefs lie, so you can maybe kind of understand and predict how they are going to vote in the decisions you make. Now, all of these choices lead to branching storylines and multiple endings, giving the game a very high degree of replayability. Combat in Triangle Strategy as a tactical JRPG is going to be grid-based and turn-driven, with the focus on positioning, terrain, and unit synergy. Elevation provides strategic advantages, attacks from higher ground hit harder, and line of sight can be used to avoid enemy detections, so that way you can flank and secure those back shots. But environmental interactions are also a key element. For instance, you can set like an icy terrain ablaze on fire, or conduct lightning attacks through water to damage multiple enemies at once. Now, as your units are leveling up through battle, they're going to gain new abilities and can be promoted to more powerful classes, but I will caveat that by saying the class system's a little more streamlined compared to other deep tactical JRPGs like Final Fantasy Tactics. While Triangle Strategy may not offer the same level of character build and customization as some of its peers in the genre, it's still a very thoughtful and rewarding experience for fans of tactical JRPGs who really value player choice and moral complexities as much as in-depth battlefield mechanics. All right, listen. Before you get mad, this spot is going to be for all of the games that people would kill me in the comments if I didn't include. So I'm bunching all of them together here so I could highlight in the earlier slots some of the lesser known games. Likely these games are already going to be games you've already played anyways if you're a JRPG fan, but if not, you'll really be able to blindly buy any of these games and have a good time. But I'll just give a brief TLDR on recommendations for each franchise. For the Persona series, you have Persona 5 on the Switch. From Dragon Quest, you have Dragon Quest XI and Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. From the Trails series, you'll have Trails Through Daybreak, or if you don't mind waiting a little bit longer, there's a 3D remake coming for the first game, which many consider the best in the entire franchise, especially as a starting point. For Final Fantasy, you really have a pick of the litter, as most of the franchise is available on the Switch too, and I believe in the distant future, the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy will be coming to the Switch, so you'll have that as an option soon as well. That's going to conclude my list of the 10 best JRPGs you need to play on the Switch. Now, if you're looking for some more dark and mature, heavy-hitting JRPGs to check out, feel free to click on this video right here where I give you the 10 best. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.